For many creatives, it's really difficult to figure out your own art style. There are many ways of creating which makes finding an art style difficult or confusing at first. Finding your own art style is the hardest but most rewarding part of the artistic journey. Many of you, however, may already have an art style and are unaware that you've already found it. So how exactly do you find your own art style? Well, the first thing you should know is that an art style is very similar to handwriting. So just like with handwriting, you had to learn how to do it. You had to practice and eventually you started to see your own style forming. Finding your art style is the same. You have to practice creating in order to see your art style forming. An art style and handwriting both form naturally. It just takes practice to release it and make you aware that this is what it looks like. Handwriting is one of them things where it can be similar to other people's or different to other people's, but there will be commonalities, differences, such as minor mistakes. Artwork is very similar. You'll have certain mistakes that you'll make in your work. Obviously this can be improved as time goes along with more practice and learning of knowledge, but mistakes in artwork are what gives the piece character and uniqueness. Handwriting can change as your mood changes, and artwork is similar. So your art style will change depending on your mood, i.e. using different art supplies or methods of creating, and your art style will also change depending on your growth rate, both artistically in skill and personally with mindsets and opinions and interests changing as you grow. So your art style changes as you change, and that's a beautiful thing. Figuring out your art style is basically just realising what your art style looks like, what sort of themes or topics you're drawn to create, and experimentation with mediums and ways that you like to use them in your work. It's all about practice. The more you create, the quicker you'll see your style taking shape. You don't need all the art supplies in the world to figure out a style of art of your own. Use what you have with the skills you already know that come naturally. You'll learn as you go along, but if you feel like painting or collaging, do that. Like whatever is comfortable will help you figure out what your art style is. So practicing different mediums, different ways of using the mediums, figuring out what exactly you like to do and dislike to do, figuring out what you don't like to do is actually quite important, because then you're whittling it down to what you do actually like doing, and then this makes finding your art style quite easy. You'll be better at some mediums than others. You won't gel with some and you won't get the hang of some for a while. It doesn't matter about specific art supplies that you use, although this does help form your art style. Your style is basically whatever you're producing and have already produced. Experimentation is kind of key for figuring out your art style, and you may have multiple styles in your time as an artist. Basically, your art style is just an expression of you, and it gets complicated, but it doesn't need to be complicated. So this is a draw this in your style challenge that I created, and I got my sister to do the piece in her style. And you'll see in a second that our styles are very different, and basically this is what two different art styles looks like. And this was a doodle. Doodling is a great way to find your art style. Doodles aren't random, they actually help form your art style, so the more you doodle, the more likely you are to figuring out your art style. Through doodling, you'll be able to figure out commonalities of what you like to draw. So this might be flowers, animals, ocean, nature, whatever. You'll start to realise that this is the kind of thing that you like to produce, and this can change, but ultimately by that point you'll probably have realised that no matter what art supply you use, that you've definitely got an art style. It can take a really long time to realise what your art style looks like, but once you've realised, then you definitely know that whatever medium you use, it's going to look like you produced it. Just like handwriting, with an art style you should be able to distinguish what is yours, but there may be others similar to yours with different themes or topics. We all have different interests, and this is displayed through themes or topics we explore in our work, and it's just about realising what that looks like for you as an artist in your style. Basically, you can use whatever mediums you want, and because you've realised your theme, it'll look like you've produced it. There are many ways to use the different mediums, and this forms specific styles that can be unique to you or the same as other artists. You'll have your own quirks and things you excel at in art. It's being aware of what that looks like helps form your art style. The theme or topic may be the same as other artists, but it's how you use the art supplies, use of colour or not, artistic choices that were made, and your quirks and skills that make it different to others. For example, one could be a watercolour artist and the other a mixed media artist. Two different approaches for the same topic or theme, and this is kind of what your own art style is. Figuring out your own art style is basically realising how you like to use mediums and what that looks like for you with your given interests or mindsets at that time. We all have different interests, and this can change like our mindsets change over time. An art style is very, very similar. An art style is basically what you're interested in and what that looks like for you as an expression of you. Sounds complicated, but it doesn't need to be. Learn to go with the flow, and what I mean by that is do it for the process, not the outcome, and you'll start to see your style forming quickly. Going with the flow is freeing, and it's a therapeutic way of practicing art. Learning to do it for the process, i.e. using green and blue because you feel like it, and seeing what you can do with them in your chosen art supplies. Limiting your art supplies can actually help with your creativity and forming an art style, because you're less focused on choices and more consumed by what you can create with a limited selection of art supplies. By all means, try out different mediums, but having everything as an option to create with can stifle creativity. Practice automatic drawing exercises such as a neurographic piece. You can take this exercise one step further and outline the shapes and turn them into things. This is making drawing easy, and this is extremely therapeutic. It can be exciting seeing the results of what we produce so effortlessly. This is the kind of exercise that is great for helping you understand what lies within your soul, and thus helps you form an art style. Colouring books or free printable colouring pages are a great way for you to figure out what themes you're interested in without having to draw for years. When having creative block, colouring pages help to kickstart the creativity again. The pressure of drawing something perfectly proportioned, for example, can limit our creativity, so pre-drawn pages ready to go help with this issue. Once you've been doing them for a while, you'll start to see your themes that you like to draw or colour in, and how exactly you like to use colour, which is forming your art style. If, like me, traditional colouring with coloured pencils isn't your thing, you could try gel pens and highlighters, or even mixed media on colouring pages. Nobody should stop you from painting the colouring page instead of the traditional expected medium. I'm a therapeutic mixed media illustration artist. And what that means is I like to use different mediums together and create in a therapeutic manner, like going with the flow and doing it for the process, not outcome. I have many mediums that I like to use, and my ways of creating using the mediums and combinations can differ. This all affects your art style and the way you choose to think about creating and how you actually create. I have many projects on the go, and thus I have many art styles that I am producing. A general rule that I set for myself is to use colours that I'm initially drawn to, as this represents and releases the emotions in a healthy way. I used to use quotes and lyrics that I resonated with in my work for an extra therapeutic element, but I feel I've expressed what I needed to at that time, and me and my art have changed, and I no longer need to create in this way. Words aren't resonating with me at this time for creating, and maybe they will resonate again in the future, but who knows. Linking this to finding your own art style, words can help explain or identify where your current state of being is at, and can help you understand yourself better, meaning that you're more in tune with the possibilities that lie within you. What I mean by that is, from the words, it can inspire you, and using words as a stimuli, its possibilities of what could be created differ from person to person, meaning art styles are different or similar in some sense, but different in their own right, as we all have our own quirks and viewpoints from which we choose to create from. As I've already mentioned, there are many ways of creating, and in this video I've showed you some of the projects I've recently been working on, and hopefully it illustrates that once you figure out what your style of art is, you can produce in any medium and it'll still look like you've produced it. There are many styles of creating, and you should find or go with the ways that are most comfortable and natural to you at first. You can challenge yourself later once you've figured out your art style. So finding your art style is not as difficult as you may have thought. Be open to having multiple styles at one time, as this is a true expression of your multifunctioning capacity. It depends how much work you put into practicing your art as to how quickly you find an art style. The knowledge in this video may help you analyse your work today and see the patterns that's formed through your work and the changes that may have occurred. You could realise that today and thus have found your art style. Or it may simply mean you need to create more in order to see your style forming.